Hey, what's going on, guys? This is AndrewChicken, and welcome back to another video. Today, I want to talk about Seris, who is kind of a controversial champion when it comes to the support class, because she is one of the most popular supports in the entire game if you look at the general player base. However, if you look at the high elo, she is considered, by and large, to be the worst support in the game. She is not picked almost ever, and when she is picked, she has the worst win rate out of all the supports. Take a look at this data. So, if I use the Itobot, or Itobot, however you're supposed to say it, I still don't remember, on my Discord server, you can look up the stats for a variety of champions, and you can do that in a variety of different ways. You can get different ELO rankings, you can get all sorts of wonderful data. So, this first graph here on the bottom, the one I'm pointing to right now, this one shows Seris in terms of her popularity in ranked. So this is the general ranked stats for the overall player base. You can see she is the third most popular support in the game. And it looks like she is just barely also the third most banned support in the entire game, although certainly a far cry from Maldamba and Ying, who are the meta options right now. However, this second chart here, right here, this is still the general player base, but it's sorted by the win rates. And you can see that Seris, in the general population, is the worst support in the game by win rate. She is barely clinging on to a positive win rate. She is almost going negative and losing more games than she's winning. She's only up by less than 1%, which is not good. And at high elo, the story doesn't get much better. This last chart right here is high elo data. So this is data from Diamond to Grandmaster level matches. And you can see Seris is clearly the lowest pick count support in the game at high elo, by a long shot. She's the only one here in triple digits. Everyone else is in 4 digits, or in Maldamba's case, Maldamba is the most popular support in the game by a long shot at high elo right now. Holy crap, he has taken over the meta. He's actually almost more banned than Ying at this point. When I last checked, he was still a little bit under Ying, but right now he's only 4,000 fewer bans. Like, holy crap, this guy's going crazy right now. But yeah, Seris is, she's the lowest pick count, and she's still the lowest win rate at high elo by, well, not much, but still the lowest, and a good 9 points under Moji right now. So, it's not looking good for Seris. And in this video, I want to investigate why, because Seris has had quite a lot of changes recently. She had a bunch of talent reworks, as I'm sure you know, and the devs are trying to make this champion work, but she just isn't working. And there are a couple of problems with this champion, and it's kind of difficult to solve them, but I want to kind of just talk about that in today's video. So first of all, I want to talk about why Seris is so popular in the first place. Seris is who I would consider to be the best new player support in the game. That means that she is the most accessible and forgiving easy support to serve as sort of an introduction to the game. She's basically the Victor of the support class. You can kind of think of her that way. So the reason for that is because she has an exceedingly easy kit, and you don't need to put in much effort to get a reasonable amount of reward. You just right-click vaguely at the Fernando, and you give him a ton of healing. And you can just do this consistently, easily. It's healing, alright? And you can shoot and do stuff while you're not busy healing. And then if an enemy comes to approach you, you can just do this, and you basically have a get-out-of-jail-free card, and oftentimes for new players, this is enough to get a pretty good value, you know? If you're new to this game, if you're starting out, you're in bronze, silver level matches, yeah, this'll be a really reliable option. But she falls off super hard if you go reasonably high. As you could see, even by general stats, she was the worst win rate support in the game, and at high elo, nobody's picking this character. So let me explain why that is. Seris is simply not competitive with almost any other support in the game, because she is only an adequate healer. She doesn't even out-heal other supports, and when she's doing her healing, she cannot do anything else. So when I am healing this Fernando, I cannot shoot, I cannot stun, I cannot reposition, and I cannot ult. None of that is an option to me as the Seris player, and then when I'm doing damage, I am not allowed to heal, so I cannot do multiple things simultaneously. And on top of that, like I already said, her healing is not even better than other supports. So I have done some math, and I want to kind of break that down for you. So let me pull out the calculator real quick. Alright, here we go. So Seris does 1,650 healing over the span of 1.5 seconds. That is 1100 healing per second, roughly, but she has a 1.5 second downtime on that, where she's not providing any healing throughout the entire match. So you can see her theoretical heal per second over 3 seconds drops to 550. This is important for a comparison I'm about to make. So let's look at Maldamba. He's going to be the character I compare Seris to a lot in this video, because he's at the top of the meta, and in many ways he's actually somewhat similar to Seris, but he does pretty much everything she does better. So, yeah, Damba is quite an interesting case. He has his Mending Spirits, and the Mending Spirits, if you look on the right side of the screen, heals for 85 health every 0.16 seconds for 3 seconds. So, we can do 85 every 0.16 seconds to get a healing per second of 531. And this is done every second over the span of 3 seconds. So, multiply that by 3, and we're doing 1593 healing with just the healing over time from this ability. Now, Seris is delivered in a faster burst. She, over the span of her actual healing, right, the 1.5 seconds she's actually doing the healing, she heals at a technical heal rate of 1,100 per second. Maldamba's is lower than that, but this is consistent over 3 seconds, and the cooldown of the ability is only 2.5 seconds, or it only listed as 2 seconds. Apparently it doesn't do decimals on this tooltips menu, but yeah, it's a 2.5 second cooldown. So, there's actually a little bit of overlap on the abilities, and I have just pure healing output the entire time with no downtime. And this is not counting the fact that, well, I picked Spirit's Chosen, which gives an additional 350 burst up front instantly, which makes this ability now do more healing than Seris's. And that burst at the start is actually quite helpful, because it allows me to deliver a powerful burst of healing that can potentially save an ally's life, especially if I buy Rejuvenate, which will increase that burst even further. And also, if I only have, let's say, 1/10 of a second to heal someone, while they're in between, you know, Cauterize applications, right? The Cauterize wears off, but it's going to be applied immediately after. That burst will deliver more healing to Fernando in that super short amount of time. So that is another very valuable thing to consider. But also, Damba has a Gourd ability. I have not talked about that yet. He can apply Mending Spirits on top of the Gourd, and at that point, it's just no competition for Seris. No competition whatsoever. She cannot outcompete this healing. This healing is simply better. So, yeah, that's tough. But then also, I can just apply that healing, and while that's healing Fernando, look at that, I can shoot Cassie at the same time. I can throw down a Gourd, and then I can go stun this other Cassie. And then I can quickly just put the right click, and then get back to shooting. So Maldamba can heal, and shoot, and Gourd, and even ult simultaneously. And that's something Seris simply cannot do, which is a big problem. And this is not unique to Maldamba either. Maldamba's not the only support who can do this. Let's just take a look through the support roster here. Grover can heal and damage at the same time. He's not even good right now, but he still does that better than Seris. Grok can heal and damage at the same time. He is phenomenal in niche comps. Furia, well, she has a bursty heal, right? And it does take a little bit of time away from shooting, but not much, right? Boom! And then shoot, 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 and then boom, and yeah, I can also just throw this beam down. If an enemy walks in that beam, by the way, they also take damage. But yeah, we can heal and do damage at the same time. So, the list just goes on. But another thing that's opened up by Maldamba here as an opportunity is the ability to heal multiple teammates at once. Seris technically has an area of effect on her Restore Soul. It will heal other allies nearby for 60% of the original base healing. So, you know, that's cool. But it's a lot more limited in its application than what Maldamba and a lot of other supports can do. Maldamba can throw a Gourd down to heal himself, and then right-click someone across the map. Seris can't do that nearly as easily. She can get a little bit of healing if she heals a teammate with one of her cards, and she can also heal herself by dealing damage to the enemies and then using Ren Soul. But Maldamba doesn't have any of those prerequisites. He can just throw a Gourd down, heal himself, and then get back to healing his team. So his self-sustain is much more reliable. And a bunch of other supports have this too. Grover's own healing abilities affect himself, Grok has his totems, Lilith has her Hex, etc., etc. But also, I can throw a Gourd all the way over at those guys, pretend those are my allies, I'm healing all those allies right now, and then I can right-click Fernando. Seris can only dream of having area healing that effective. So Maldamba has a lot of utility by the fact he has two healing abilities. He can heal himself, he can heal his allies over there, and then heal more allies over there. You can do a lot more with this kit than you can do with Seris' relatively limited healing tool. So, Yeah, as you can see by all I've just laid out there,
I must spend the
Seris is
credits.
completely and utterly outclassed by Moldamba and most other supports in the support class in regards to the potency of her healing, the ability to deal damage to enemies and heal her teammates at the same time, and the ability to heal multiple allies and herself in different ways. At each and every one of these things, she fails compared to almost every single other support in the game. And that's, well, kind of a big hurdle to get over without drastically changing her kit's design. Now, the rest of her is okay. There are certainly things that can be good here, right? Her damage with Soul Collector can actually be quite nice, right? I get 12 stacks up, and boom, look at all that damage. And the piercing damage can be good as just extra spam towards the enemies, you know? Just spam the point, deal damage to the enemy tank, apply Cauterize. It can be used for zoning as sort of a blasting tool. And yeah, also, the fact she has a stun is pretty good. That's good utility for her to have. That can, you know, she can put 4 stacks on that Fernando, then he can put up a shield, and she can be like, nuh-uh, boom, get stunned, and then put the shield down and then kill him. And that is also a good tool to defend herself from flanks. On top of that, her ultimate is actually quite fantastic. This is by far the best part about Seris, the fact that you can group enemies up and then have them just die to the rest of her teammates, and also her, you know, pretty reasonable piercing weapon. That's all really good. So,
Spend the credits.
certainly doesn't that provide some value? Doesn't that give you a reason to pick Seris at high elo? Well, not exactly, because of the roadblock I mentioned earlier. If you are healing with Seris, you are not able to do damage at the same time, and that means you have a limited opportunity to do that and stun the enemies. And actually, as you could see there, it takes me a long time to actually get those stacks up on someone. So if I just, if I channel the heal on Fernando after he respawns, channel the heal, wait for the cooldown, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then stun. Well, I'm kind of wasting time there, aren't I? Because I got my cooldown on my Resourceful back while I was still trying to get 4 stacks and stun that Cassie, so I'm not really being that efficient with my heals. Whereas a champion like Moldamba, Ying, etc. can just spam their abilities all the freaking time. So her damage and stun utility comes at the cost of her healing, and that is in stark contrast to pretty much every other support out there in the game right now. And it's quite the predicament. Also, another predicament for this character is that even though her ultimate is fantastic, she's not able to build it as efficiently as you might think. And again, that's because of the damage and healing split. If you're only doing healing, and you're not doing damage, then you're not going to build your ultimate as quickly as someone who is able to deal damage and heal at the same time. She certainly has a powerful tool to make up for that fact with Sorceress, which increases her ultimate charge rate by 35%. It's one of her best cards, and that is certainly a big boon to how much ultimate uptime you can have. But yeah, a champion who is able to do both simultaneously will have a much better uptime on their ultimate than someone who can only do one option or another. Especially when Seris' damage certainly isn't the highest in the support class, and also her healing, as demonstrated earlier, isn't the highest in the support class. So even if she and Moldamba are only healing and never ever doing damage to the enemies, Moldamba will still build his ultimate faster because he's doing more healing than Seris. And the more healing and more damage you do, the more ultimate charge you get. So that's quite the predicament as well. So now let's talk about how the devs have tried to address her pain points, because they've introduced 2 new talents, which both try to do different things to give Seris more utility and fix her problems when it comes to higher level gameplay. Because, yeah, as it stands, there's no reason to pick Seris when she's just a mediocre heal bot in high elo. You need your supports to do more than that. These talents try to make her do more than that. I'm going to start with Internal Torment because this is the weirder of the 2 talents, and it's kind of a big failure. People aren't playing this at all. So this talent makes it so that whenever you stun someone with your Ren Soul, they will take 20% increased damage for 3 seconds. This means that if your teammates are shooting at them, they will deal increased damage. So if I just stun this Ying, we go from 210 damage per shot to 242 damage per shot. And that's cool. But this talent doesn't address the key problem that I've kept hammering home about, which is the fact that, again, if you're doing this, you're sacrificing your healing output. And if you're being a good healer, you're being diligent, healing your allies all the time, you don't have many opportunities to do that. So you're forced to choose between giving this damage amp or giving the healing. You can't do both at the same time. And if you're going to play a damage-oriented playstyle with Seris, this talent stands directly in competition with Soul Collector, which is simply a better talent. This makes it so that each soul charge that you detonate with your Ren Soul increases your maximum health and weapon damage by 2% until you die, stacks up to 12 times. So this talent gives Seris personally a 24% damage amp, which is higher than 20%, and it's permanent until you die, and then you have to build your stacks up again. And this also increases her max health by 24%, which, fun fact, is more than Veteran. Veteran scales up to 18%, and the funny thing is you can stack them together, so you can turn Seris into a tank. And gaining more survivability as a support is phenomenal. You know, a support that's alive is going to do a heck of a lot more than a support that's dead. So this gives Seris survivability on top of a more powerful damage amp than what Internal Torment gives. Internal Torment has the benefit of letting her allies deal more damage to the target, but it's for a limited window. And honestly, most players will just opt to take the better survivability of Soul Collector and have the ability to more consistently deal damage themselves to the enemies, and basically play Seris as just a through-and-through damage champion. And if you're going to play off-support Seris, then yeah, Soul Collector is just the better option. So, Internal Torment fails to be a good solo support option because, well, the utility of the talent comes at the cost of your healing output, and if you're being a good healer, then you're not able to use the talent. And it also fails to compete with her damage talent, which is Soul Collector, so it's just not good. But then we have Forsake. Now this is the more interesting of the two in my opinion, because it takes a more serious jab at her pain points and tries to fix them in a more meaningful manner. This makes it so that Restore Soul now heals over half a second, but its cooldown is increased to 3 seconds. This gives Seris the ability to burst up the enemies. Or burst up the teammates, excuse me. Jeez. Don't burst heal the enemies, my gosh. But as you can see here against Fernando, boom. Give him a big burst of healing, and then I can spend time shooting, and then burst him up, and then continue to shoot and deal damage much more consistently. So, in its own weird way, this increases her damage output throughout the match, while managing to keep mostly her healing intact, and the fact that it makes her healing burstier means that it can be better in late game when Cauterize is ramped up, because if you only have a split second to heal someone before Cauterize gets reapplied to them again, having a burstier heal is better. You'll deliver more healing in a shorter amount of time. So this talent does a lot right to help fix her pain points. However, it still has its flaws. So let's go back to the calculator. Ooh boy. So with this talent, Seris has a half a second duration on the heal. That's good. That's really bursty. As a matter of fact, if we just do 1650 over 0.5, you can see that the burstiness renders this ability an impressive 3,300 healing per second on paper. Technically. Theoretically. That's not actually what's happening in game, but you know, it's a fun number to look at. But the problem is, this talent has a 3-second cooldown. So 0.5 plus 3 equals 3.5. But, by default, she has a 1.5 second channel time with a 1.5 second cooldown. Uh-oh. So, this talent has significantly less uptime than her normal default healing. You're adding a half a second before you can basically deliver your next heal, right? Half a second channel time, 3-second cooldown. Yeah, your healing throughput throughout the match over the span of a match long term is actually going to be technically less with this talent. Now, theoretically, that could be mitigated, and in fact, the burst of it might improve your healing output through the match if you're skillful at hitting those heals when a teammate is not affected by Cauterize. But ultimately, yeah, it doesn't really help her numbers that much in terms of her healing output. And remember, the healing output of Restore Soul cannot even hold a candle to what Maldamba can do with Mending Spirits and his Gourd. As a matter of fact, it's on par with his Mending Spirits, and then the Gourd just makes Maldamba way better, hands down, no competition. And this healing still lacks the flexibility of a champion who has multiple healing abilities. Even her sister Seris has a better ability to heal the team because, well, take a look at this. You can grab Solar Blessing, and you can basically just beam the Fernando, and then go shoot to your heart's content, and if there's an ally over there, you can heal them. Or you can just pop a heal on Fernando like that, and then keep healing Fernando with right clicks. Oh, I got a teammate over there, I can beam them. Boom, just like that. All while shooting, and by the way, remember the beam can still be used for damage, so yeah, just do that, and then, well, bam, heal Fernando, deal damage to that Cassie. Like, there's a lot more utility in this kit, and again, this is just one of many examples. So Forsake still lacks that. And in some cases, the fact that the cooldown is longer now means that your heals are a little bit less reliable and dependable. You know, having low cooldown is absolutely a fantastic thing to have in a support. Less downtime on your abilities means more opportunities to potentially save somebody. And I have noticed that a lot of Forsake players will sometimes struggle to keep an ally alive because they'll use their one healing ability, their only healing ability, boom, just like that, and then they don't have anything for a few seconds, and that teammate will just die before they can get another heal on them. And actually, if they were to play Soul Collector instead, they might have genuinely been able to save that teammate a little bit better. So it's not this sort of silver bullet solution that magically fixes Seris in late game. It certainly helps in some ways, but she still needs more than this to be competitive in a more serious high elo environment. But it definitely, I would say, is going in a good direction, because having more of an ability to use Seris' kit, right, do those stuns, do extra damage, and do more ults is good, and this talent will in some ways lead to more ult charge because you have more opportunities to do damage while preserving a similar amount of healing to what Seris normally gets. So it's not an all-around trash, terrible talent, but it doesn't fix Seris nearly as well as anyone was really hoping this talent would. And ultimately right now, I still think that Soul Collector is simply her best option, because it gives her that extra self-sustain, and the ability to sort of take matters into her own hands and deal more damage. She can defend herself from flanks better, she can play aggressive if she wants to, and she does more damage to the enemies when she scoops them up with her ult. So yeah, as sad as it is, the fact that they rework these two talents doesn't matter much, because at the end of the day, before the talent reworks, Soul Collector was her best talent. After the talent reworks, Soul Collector is still her best talent. So what can be done to save this champion, to fix this champion? Well, that is a tough question to answer, because Seris' role as the new player beginner-friendly support is actually quite an important role. It should be preserved. There should be champions in this game who are able to get pretty reasonable value with almost no skill. I know it sounds a little like, I don't know, Andrew, is that exactly right? But new players need something they can latch onto. New players need something that they can play and feel like they're contributing to the team and just have something easy to do while they're still understanding the game, because this game is very overwhelming for new players. There's 59 champions to learn, with a whole bunch of unique crowd control effects, status effects, talents, loadouts, not to mention the item store. It's a lot to handle, so there needs to be an easy champion that these players can latch to. But at the same time, an easy champion should never really be meta at high elo, right? Like, you don't want to have the easiest champion in the game also be the best champion in the game. We saw in the middle of Season 6, when they buffed Genos to the extreme, how he quickly became the most boring meta support champion overnight. Everyone was playing him, he required zero skill to play, it just wasn't very fun. So there has to be a good balance there where, yes, her ease of use is still preserved, but she has an option to be good at those higher levels of play. We don't want her to be a throw pick, and that is kind of what she is right now when stacked up against literally every other support because of the problems I mentioned earlier. So finding a solution is very difficult, but one thing that might be potentially a good route for this character is to make it so that there's a way for her to do two things at once. Make it so that there's a way where she can deal damage and heal her teammates at the same time. Even if it's not like a super crazy amount, even if it's not like the highest in the game or whatever, just still give her something. And an idea that popped into my mind that might potentially be interesting is actually a little bit inspired by Moji. Moji can apply marks to her team, and the more marks that they have, the more healing she does. What if Seris had a talent, or perhaps even a thing in base kit, that worked in a similar way? What if she could mark teammates just like this, and then when she does Rensoul, heal equivalent to the damage output? So you do this, bop, 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 shooting my teammates and shooting the enemies, and then detonate, and boom, 400 damage, 200 damage, 300 damage, 400 healing on a teammate, 300 healing on a teammate. That would give her a reason to shoot more, be a little bit more aggressive, use her Rensoul more often, and still give her teammates some kind of value. Because she does have utility in her kit. The stun is a very powerful form of utility, and her ultimate is a very powerful thing. So it's not like she's lacking modes of utility, right? It's not like she's a true heal bot in the sense that she has no other way to support the team. But, you know, when she is healing with this, she doesn't have the ability to use any of these other tools. And so giving her an avenue to use those tools and still give the team some sort of healing might potentially be a way to help the champion out. Now, would that idea be too strong, or would it possibly create too much screen clutter, or things for Seris to be doing or something? I don't know. That's for you to tell me in the comments section down below, and also to comment with your own ideas for how to fix this champion. I do think that Forsake is a good approach, but I think the cooldown should probably be reduced to make it so that she has sort of a similar cadence to what she had before, in the sense that all the healing is applied technically over the span of 3 seconds. You have the 1.5 second channel, and then you have a 1.5 second cooldown. That's 3 seconds total to complete one cycle of healing. So if it had a 2.5 second cooldown and a half second channel, that would still be a 3 second cycle of healing. That would be equivalent to the healing output previously, but the burstiness would make it more reliable in some circumstances, but less reliable in others if you really need to have good uptime on somebody. So that could potentially be good, and you could potentially make the healing stronger, although that's a very risky thing in my opinion, because again, she is super easy to use, and you don't want to make a super easy to use champion have too much power, too much strength. And yeah, so like if her right click ability did, I don't know, 2000 healing instead of 1650, maybe that would be too strong. So that's kind of a tough thing to add to the champion, in my opinion. I would also like to see some of her cards get changed. And first and foremost, I think something that should have happened a very long time ago, and something that desperately needs to happen to make this champion better and also even more accessible, is to put Veil into base kit. Straight up, just at level 4 or level 5, put this card into the base kit. Because this card is 100% mandatory for this champion. If you make a Seris build that doesn't have this card, you're going to have a very difficult time. And especially for new players, this card is a godsend for them, because her base shadow travel is a little bit too slow for a lot of newer players' reaction times. But also, if you're a veteran player, you still want to use this card so that way you can quickly react to somebody and get the heck out of a dangerous situation. So it just makes sense that this card should be put into base kit and replace it with anything, really. I don't know. There are a bunch of different ideas you could possibly have for this card. I don't really have any off the top of the head, but yeah, this card just needs to go into base kit. And also certain other cards should see some improvements. Bane, come on guys, look at this. Wow, so when you level up this card, you don't level up the maximum at all. So at level 5, if you detonate 3 soul orbs, you get a 15% movement speed bonus for 4 seconds. What are we doing with this card? Umbral Gate makes it so that if you just have a single mark applied, while that mark is applied, which, by the way, is a lot longer than 4 seconds, you can move way faster. At level 5, it's a 40% bonus, more than 2 times stronger than Bane. And you can just keep shooting occasionally, and just constantly have this buff up. You can even use it while you're in shadow travel, look at that. So, like, this card just needs a rework. And, yeah. Apart from that, like, most of our other cards are fine. They did fix Spirit Leech and Blood Pack, specifically when using Forsake, which is nice, and they unnerfed Spirit Leech. There was a bit of an oversight when the patch first dropped, where this card just got super nerfed. So that's nice. And yeah, it's not like our card situation is terrible, but, you know, it definitely does need some sort of improvements. In fact, maybe you could even buff Wickedness. This card has not even 2 seconds at level 5. Maybe make it 2 seconds just to be clean. I don't know, just a thought. But yeah, I think that's where I'm going to leave it to you guys. What do you think about this champion and all that I've said today in this video? A lot of ideas, a lot of analyses, and a lot of things to consider. This is another one of those sort of open discussion videos where I'm talking about a champion trying to see what can be improved. So yeah, let me know all of your wonderful thoughts in the comment section down below. Make sure to like this video if you thought it was good, if you like my suggestions, or yeah, I don't know, you just enjoy the sound of my voice. Oh, but isn't that nice? And yeah, subscribe for more content on the channel from me. Lastly, if you want to support the channel directly and keep the lights on over here so I can keep making videos, you can join the memberships program linked down below. There are a bunch of different price points. You get different rewards for different tiers. Or if you were thinking of buying crystals to buy a new skin in Paladins, you can go and do that over at my Nexus, nexus.gg/AndrewChicken, and a portion of the proceeds go directly to supporting the channel in the process. And yeah, it's officially affiliated with the Evil Mojo, so yeah, it's the real deal. I'd really appreciate it if you would check it out. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. I will see you all next time. Peace out.